family. Okay. So glad to be with you. Hope you had a fantastic week since the last time we met. You was on Thursday. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. What am I looking for? Oh, I'm trying to stop the music. So I've been working hard to set up my podcast stuff. Yeah. What? Boo, boo. Anyway, so glad to be back with you. Again, like I said, I hope you had a fantastic week. If this is your first time here, this is Swami Live, where we discuss all things healing in various forms. We do conversations, we got homework, prompt questions, we watch videos. We probably gonna watch a video tonight. And we actually do live energy readings on live. You can catch us here every Tuesday and Thursday at 7 p.m. Thursday is a book club, so it's a little different than Tuesday. Tuesday is all about healing. Thursday is a spinoff of our Tuesday show, which puts us in a space to be able to reconnect with that childlike energy in us by having somebody read to us. But you can follow me on everything, but you can watch the show live on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook if you're on Facebook. If you're new here, I call it Facebox all the time. It's a whole long story about that. Generally, at the beginning of every show, we also do some energy cleansing with some sound bowls and specific energy point and some visualizations and some breath work, a little bit of all of that before we jump straight into it. So this week's chakra, our energy point we're working on, is the root chakra. The root chakra. The color for your root chakra is red, hence the red tint, even though it looks a little orange-ish. Red doesn't always translate that well across screen, but the color for your root is red. Your root is known about your survival, your sense of safety, your stability, your sense of security, and you're grounded, how connected you feel to the world and the earth and the people around you, how grounded, how balanced you feel. If you are into aromatherapy, you want to think frankincense, myrrh, patchouli, black pepper is pretty good for your root. That's good because I shake that thing on everything. I did want to curse because it is an old commercial where dudes say I put that on everything. So yeah, I put that on everything. If you are into crystals and stones, you want to think red stones, red jasper, garnet, bloodstone, obsidian is pretty good. Black obsidian is good for that. Hermite, you want to go with black stones, dark stones too. They are good for your root chakra, surprisingly. I'm going to have to do some work. I don't have any red stones, actually, which is wild. What's the closest? Just red amethyst, but I'm going to do some work. Okay, where we at now, family? All right, we are on our sound bowl. So during this time, all you got to do is just relax and listen to the sound. What? Okay, cool. Keep coming through. Well, why donde es chat box? Why is it all the way down there like that? That's crazy. Anyway, so during this time, all you got to do is just relax and listen to the soothing sounds of the bowl. Somebody was talking about me, my ear itching. For the breath work, we are going to use, you know what, I'm going to try to. I'm going to see how this goes for us, family. If it's a little too loud or something. But for the breath work, we are going to do 4, 7, 8, which is you breathe in for a 4 count, you hold for a 7 count, and you release for an 8 count. You won't have to focus on that. All you have to do is just focus on your breathing and your breath work, and I will keep the count for you. On my count of 3, we'll start. 1, 2, 3. Breathe in for 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Breathe in for a 4 count. 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last time, family. Breathe in 4, 2, 3, 4. Hold 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Release 8, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, the visualization today, we're not even going to do a visualization. We're going to work on our root chakra, utilizing our own energy. So I want you to find a comfortable position where you can put your hands on your feet. Whether you put them on the top or you sitting in a place where you can put them on the bottom of your feet, but just make sure you're able to touch your own feet. And as you touch your own feet, I want you to take a deep breath and think about the energy that you need that would strengthen your root. That is the energy you need that will strengthen your survival, strengthen your safety, your stability, your security, and keeping you grounded. And as you think of that energy, I want you to repeat these affirmations with me or after me, and give yourself the energy that coincides with the affirmations that we are saying. We're creating this space for us to be able to feel and connect with our own energy and emotions. First, I am safe and secure. I am grounded and centered. I am self-sufficient. I am financially secure. I love being in my body. I am safe and secure. I am grounded and centered. I am self-sufficient. I am financially secure. And I love being in my body. Those are good affirmations to keep you grounded. Reset, get you back grounded. But remember, we talked about it. You got to embody that energy because you're already a master at manifestation. Yes. Hold on. Yes. Jesus Christ. Forgive me, family. Yes. Forgive me, family, for real. All right, forgive me, family, again. Wound up getting a work message, and work happens. I grind. Where we at? Let me get myself refocused again. All right, we on our side camera. We're gonna have a general conversation. A couple of things I want to talk with your family about. And this first idea is to really speak on your role as a shepherd. And when I say shepherd, I do mean in similar to the sense of how a shepherd shepherds a herd of sheep or goat or anything like that. But the thing that we're shepherding here, or you are shepherding here, is souls, your friends and family, the people that you run across, right? Why this conversation winds up being important, because once you start your healing journey, you begin to get a new responsibility. And this new responsibility is that of a shepherd, in the sense that you have a role to play in guiding those and figuring out their own path to self-healing, right? And I remember, I told you before, I studied 5%ers for a long time, right? And they had this one saying we used to say all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. And it was each one, teach one, right? And this idea is generally, when I learn something new, I have a responsibility to teach at least one other person, right? So essentially, that one other person that I teach will become part of my flock, because I'm sharing the love. Now, they may go out and create their own flock, or they may become the leader of shepherds. But essentially, I played my part and did my responsibility. Then I looked up this idea of each one teach one, right? Each one teach one actually comes from slavery times, which is very interesting. And it surrounds the idea of those who learned to read had a responsibility to teach those who did not know how to read. So that idea of each one teach one has been passed down through us generationally to all of us. And the wild thing about it was my first introduction to this idea, like I said, was when I was studying mathematics with the 5%ers. But this is an idea and a concept that has been taught to us, which ties into our generational curses. Because it's not always a curse, but it's the information that's passed down to us. So as you begin to learn these things, you do have a responsibility to each one teach one. And not in a way that you become responsible for their healing. You're just responsible for sharing what you have learned and allowing them the space to eat the meat, spit out the bones, take from your messaging what they need to move on, right? And the way that you know that you're moving into the space of a shepherd is that your flock will begin to find you. They will begin to connect with you. You'll know it's starting to happen because you'll start having random people that'll begin to start sharing with you, right? Because now that you recognize where you need to grow, you now have ability to hear and see people. So once people start feeling heard and seen, safe enough to share with you these experiences, these thoughts, these ideas, knowing that you will listen and hear them from a non-judgmental position as best as you can, and create a space for them to be seen. That is how you know that these people are a part of your flock, right? And what it does is it creates an opportunity for you to really practice the skill set of listening without judging, right? Because that is a very difficult task. We judge ourselves. We literally practice judging all day. So listening without judging is a skill set that we have to practice. And how we do this is we ask questions. We restate what we've heard. Because as I've said before, no one cares about your advice. The conclusion that you drew from the event or the situation may be very different than something I need from my life. What people need most from you, what your flock needs most from you, is your testimony. Again, as I said, that story that you hold so close to your heart, that you are very careful about who you share it with. When you start to notice that people are coming to you and sharing their testimony, then that lets you know that you're creating this space, right? So then you share your testimony, and they, as I said earlier, can eat the meat and spit out the bones. They may come to a different conclusion that you never would have thought of, that is beneficial to everyone, but most importantly, beneficial to them on their path as they go forward. Now, with me saying that you have a responsibility to be a shepherd to this newfound flock, I promise you they will find you. That does not mean that you have to have all the answers, right? You need to be able to point them in the right direction. You have to pay enough attention to these people, be present enough to know when they've ate all the grass in your field and they need a different pasture, right? And it's funny because when we look at these, we think all food is going to be enough, but we're going to take it in the spirit of a goat. So we see goats, we've been told that goats eat everything, right? But one thing I found very ironic is they love poison ivy. I've watched a herd of goats walk past all leafy greens that was around them and went straight to the poison ivy. Someone pointed them to that. So that's me saying that you may not have in your field what is necessary for this goat to sustain or to get them to their healing. And you have to be able to recognize when it's time to point them in the right direction. You give them all you can, and you begin to share your resources. Because as you are on this healing path, there's someone that is guiding you. And I'm saying all of this is if you are connected to the soul family, I want you to know that when your flock begins to need poison ivy or other green pastures that they love so much, please do not be afraid to send them to your spiritual guide as well, right? Take that responsibility, that honor, that duty. And we're having this conversation because a lot of times once we find our safe space, we do all we can to protect it because we don't want our safe space to no longer feel safe to us. But as I said, it's been culturally sent down to us for generations that each one teach one. So when you find that safe space, please do your flock a favor and share with them the resources, because some of us will be here to lead flocks and some of us will be here to lead shepherds. So do not put all that responsibility and pressure. Understand that you have a family that you can point. You don't have to know everything. Just recognize your role and position to allow them to be seen and heard. You pour into them and help them come to realizations on themselves by asking questions, being present and listening to them. And when they've gotten all that they can get from you, you recognize that and humbly pass them on for more healing. Now, the big topic I kind of wanted to talk tonight was, is this idea of naming your generational curse, right? And one of the reasons that this is important is, one, I had the opportunity to be able to do it for my own family over the weekend. But we hear a lot of conversations about generational curses, generational curse this, generational curse that. And we very rarely hear people define what that generational curse is. Like, I've heard so many people say, I'm trying to break generational curses. But I've never really heard them say what generational curse that they're trying to break, or they make the dire mistake of naming the curse, the wound, the symptoms of the curse, right? So to be able to break these generational curses, generational trauma, generational thought patterns, you have to be able to put a name on them, to be able to make sure you approach these with the right tools that will make you victorious, right? So you have to have a name. And I say why this is important because for the longest, I really did. I spent some time over this weekend really just thinking about myself, right? And I was thinking of, is this one thing that I love? And I want to interact with it differently, right? I can tell it has somewhat of a hold on my mind, and I don't like the hold that it has on my mind. And, you know, we talk a lot about creating the space to be able to feel the emotions and process the emotions, because the answers that we are seeking reside in us. So I created a space for myself to be able to process the whys. And I'm sitting here thinking about Why do I do this? Why is this the only thing that I just don't stop, right? Although I enjoy it, I just know I don't like the way that if I decide that I don't want to do it, I still figure out ways to do it, right? And it's crazy because as I'm sitting here thinking about this, I'm having a conversation with myself and going back and forth, and I keep saying like, well, when I do it, I'll be feeling guilty, or this will make me feel guilty, or this is guilty, or that is guilty. And I recognized I kept using this word guilty. And then I recognized that it was a bigger issue, that my issue is probably the guilt I feel, right? Because I recognize that the thing that I'm trying to stop, the thing that I want more control over, is just a manifestation, an extension of the real issue, right? So as long as I'm focusing on the blood from the wound, I never take time to get to the wound. So as I'm sitting here thinking about why this thing has this grip on my mind, why does it have this grip on my mind? Why can't I say no? Why can't I just walk away? Why can't I just cold turkey? Why can't I do these things? Why can I not? I recognize that the thing I'm trying to stop is just a symptom of a bigger problem. I've attached this to something in me that is wounded or triggered, and I'm using this as a crutch to hold me up. Which is how I say a lot of times in our generational curses, we don't name them, or we name the problem, the blood from the wound and not the wound, like addiction. Many of us are saying that we're breaking this generational curse of addiction, but addiction is the blood from the wound. It is not the wound, which is how you can avoid addiction but still manifest the generational curse in a whole different way, right? Because you too are wiping up the blood. You're not even using the right tools, right? So as I did this thing and I create this space, I'm holding space for myself to be able to process feelings and emotions, and bow, guilt hits me. And I begin to cry because the guilt is from a foundational space, right? So as I was doing creating this space for myself, I felt like my foot started hurting. And I recognized that as, I was like, what is in me that's almost out? But since it's in my foot, it's something foundational. What is bothering me? What is bothering me? What is bothering me? And then I recognized that many of us carry this guilt. And it is the guilt of being born. Now, you may say, how's that guilt look? It winds up being where if you were a kid and you ever questioned, why did this happen? If you weren't in a space or had parents to make sure that they can affirm that they wanted you, or they're still showing you that they want you, that creates somewhat of a foundation of confusion in this world. That is a foundation of instability, right? And over time, we've done so much work that I've knocked a lot of things out, but it's that one little piece. And when I came to that realization, that's a tough realization. I was one of those kids who, my parents got divorced when I was young, right? And my father was a disappearing act at best. He come in and out of my life. So as a child growing up in that situation, growing up with that father dynamics, you wonder, did he really want me? Now this is ironic. My parents can clearly profess, confess, and say with all of their heart that they love me. But loving someone and wanting someone is very different. Because as my father was going through his own trials and tribulations, children became a hindrance to his learning. It got in the way. So that's one direction I could think about how that foundational was fractured. And then I look into my mother. Because she was a single mother, she spent most of her time paying bills, working to provide a roof over our head. So that in that instance, we became something that you just take care of. That's the same thing as a cat, a dog, a light bill, gas in your car. That is just a responsibility, something that you take care of. That doesn't mean you want it. You don't want a light bill, even though you pay it. You don't want to have to put gas in your car, even though you do it. So that created this dynamic where you're not in a space to be able to recognize if the people who are supposed to show you that you are wanted, right? And as you go through this process of figuring out your generational curses, it always starts with yourself. Like, what is my issue, right? But as we learned here, and as we discussed, life is bigger than you. And there are a lot of different dynamics that go into play that create this experience that you call your life. So I took a pause and I looked at both of my family. I started looking at my family history. Because after you look at yourself and you think that's it, you got to step back and see if your family is carrying that same thing, right? So most of my family, I can tell you from grandma to mom to me, right? And below. So before my great-great-great-grandma and all that stuff, I don't know. But I can assume that it ain't just start with my grandma. Especially if we understand that this idea of each one teach one was something that's been taught to us from birth for generations, right? So as I'm looking back, so as you look back at your family, as I'm looking back at my family, I began to see that, okay, many of them are responding to guilt. So my grandmother died when she passed when my mother was 12. So most of her siblings, all of them were generally still older teens and young and kids. So they were generally still children when that was taken from them. So their sense of idea of being wanted in this world or feeling wanted in this world was fractured as well. They didn't even know that that was important because it was something that they never had. They didn't even know that it was important to teach your children this because it was something that they never had. And I spent a lot of time inside the house because I was on punishment. I was a little punch. They used to call me little punishment boy. But the benefit of that is I was able to talk to all our family members. I heard stories from everybody And when I think about my aunt, I think about the reason she turned to alcoholism was guilt was eating her alive. Half her stories had something to do with guilt. Then when I think about my uncle, why he turned to alcohol was the guilt. So alcoholism, the addiction that is going through my family, is not the demon, is not the devil that they are fighting. It is the guilt they feel from not knowing if they were wanted. And they make decisions based on the guilt. I look at all my aunts and uncles, and each and every single one of them are battling against guilt. So then I look at how they parented their children. I'm looking at my cousins. And you know they all still have the same question. I can't look at any of my cousins and said they had a parent that reinforced the idea that I wanted you. And then I look at their decisions and the way they move in life and how they navigate the world. And I recognize that they are fighting against guilt as well. So this guilt that I felt, this guilt that I recognize, is a guilt that was passed down to me, because I can recall my people saying, I didn't have that. Right? And the funny thing about guilt is it doesn't like to function by itself. It is one of those good companions emotions. Now, guilt can be attached to a lot of different things. Well, for my family, it was attached to envy. Right? And how I see this is I looked at my own life, because once I recognized that guilt was guiding a lot of my decisions, I visualized and seen myself whipping myself with guilt. Guilt is the burden that I carry. I make decisions based on guilt. I thought about it and I was like, well, dang. Because after I looked at the family, after you look at the family, you got to start thinking about the impact it's made on your life. Well, if guilt is the devil that we are fighting, what decisions have I made based on guilt? And one decision that popped in my mind was even going to college. One of the reasons when I graduated from high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And if I would have made the decision for myself, I probably still been working at TJ Maxx after college. I mean, after high school, not now. Not now. Right? But one of the reasons I chose to go to college is the guilt that I would feel, or the guilt that would be placed on me, because I didn't take advantage of the opportunity that my family fought so hard for. I'm sure you have thought that. You have wondered that. That leaves you in a space of guilt. And okay, man, my thing keep beeping. So as I'm looking at guilt, I start to think like, dang, what is our guilt attached to? And as I said, it was envy. And how envy wound up manifesting in my life was wild. Because the first idea that popped in my life was my friendships. I thought about my best friend. One of the reasons she is my best friend, or she became my best friend, or I connected to her, was I was envious of her family structure. She had two parents who wanted them. Like, listen, I mean, they parents, there's no mistaking that they parents wanted them. They not even confused about it at all. To this day, they know that. And I used to sit there and enjoy it, but be in envy of it. My decision to work with children was one based on envy, not a decision that I thought was best for my life or go and lead me in the direction I wanted to go. It was an envious decision. I wanted to be in an energy where the people there felt wanted. They didn't even know what it felt like to not be wanted. Now, sometimes, of course, you don't want them around. You don't want them talking, but they are loved. And I want to make sure that these children feel wanted. Guilt. Because I don't want nobody else to feel like that. Guilt. As I'm looking at the impact that it has on my life, it has cultivated and navigated many of my decisions, right? So, we talk about the men's group. And for me to figure out where I picked this up for myself, one of the things that the brothers said that is good for you to do is to think about the first time you felt that emotion, right? And again, as a reminder, emotions are natural. So guilt has a space. It is a natural thing, right? Feelings are the stories that we tell ourselves about those emotions. And as we talked about it, it creates a feedback loop that can either reinforce or disable the emotions that you are feeling, right? So the brother says to me, think about that first time you felt that emotion or that feeling. And it was funny because I already had that first time. It instinctively just kind of came up when I was thinking about the process. I'm like, dang, I'm just realizing how I've been making decisions based on guilt. And then it came up. I was like, I remember my parents used to make me feel guilty about eating food. Right? I talked to my homeboy and explained, I think that's where we connected. Right? So I was one of those children that I don't understand. I to this day, I still don't understand this about some parents. That children, you got food, right? Food is meant to be eaten. Now, of course, you can't eat it all. There's a certain balance. You're supposed to teach them balance, but they should have access to it. And I can remember the times that my parents would make me feel guilty about doing something that's so natural as eating. I remember they would hide snacks from us, hide stuff from us, which is a wild concept because you buy the food to eat. Why are you hiding it? And that creates guilt. So then that's why I know I got this weird connection with snacks, because now I can eat them and not feel guilty. There's nobody here to hide snacks from me. There's nobody here to tell me that I shouldn't eat that many snacks or whatever. It's just all self-control. But going back to that first time allows me to begin to see the root of where I picked up when this guilt became my burden. And then once you dive in and you name that, it becomes like, for me, I can even think about even in my dating process, some of the reasons I stayed in situations or in relationships that I didn't belong in from the first place is because the guilt I would feel if I left them. The guilt I would feel from creating a heartache that I don't want to feel kept me making wild decisions. I even think about with my ex. It was wild. I met her and thought she had one child. Then I found out she had 3. My spirit was like, oh no, that's too many for you. I have 0, right? I'm not saying something's wrong with 3 children. That's just too much for me to be able to afford. I'm one of those people that want to be able to take care of my family. Going from 0 to 5 is a big jump. So even though instinctively my spirit was like, maybe this is too much for you, I didn't want to feel guilty for turning my back on somebody. This is how I talk to myself. You can't turn your back on nobody. You done did this, blah, 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 so forth, so forth. Making a decision with the guilt in mind, the guilt that I still would carry. And this is a beautiful thing, because now, once you are able to label your own family wound, it opens your eyes to be able to see it for others. Right? I think I helped a friend recognize that their family wound might be worry. How worry is passed down with good intentions, right? For my family, that guilt was passed down, right? And the interesting thing that I found out about guilt, the counter emotion for guilt is empathy. And one thing that I've seen my family fight very hard against is empathy. They will tell you to protect your empathy so nobody takes advantage of it. They were so worried about somebody taking advantage of their empathy, or so worried about somebody not utilizing their empathy or appreciating them for their empathy. They behaved in ways that would create the guilty feelings. They didn't allow themselves to live authentically and appreciate and value those gifts. So the question I ask for you is, what is your family curse? And what is your family gift? So why this is important is we want to be able to make sure that we approach these curses or these generational traumas with the right tools, right? And I say that's important because you correctly label, then you know how to address it. And using myself as an example, I was thinking boredom was my issue, right? But the funny thing about boredom is no matter what you do, you still got to find something else to do. You can have if you bored and you have a drink, guess what you're going to be? Drunk and bored. If you smoke and you have a drink, guess what you're going to be? Smoked and bored. So no matter what you do, you still got to find something to do. So boredom, I'm pretty cool with that. I know what to do with boredom. Find something to do, even if it is to go to sleep. So I recognized boredom wasn't it. And then I thought about, well, maybe loneliness. I've even said it to other people that loneliness is the issue. But we've been doing so much work that it's hard for me to deny how much I like myself. So being alone myself, the information that I receive, being in the spaces to be able to feel and experience, I love those things. So being alone isn't necessarily the issue. Guilt was. But all this time, I have been addressing it as if maybe it was boredom, maybe it was loneliness, and attacking it with the wrong tools and wondering why these tools are not working against this trauma, against this wound, this familiar wound. Why isn't it not happening? Right? So for yourself, like as you thinking about it, or as you processing, what is the issue that you can't break? What is the one thing that you can't let go? What's the thing you're struggling to put down? And then ask yourself, what have you attached that to? that you are not ready yet to address, right? So for some of us, as we stated earlier, it's addiction. Whether it be to legal substances, whether it be to illegal substances, you can be addicted to snacks. You can be addicted to shopping, addictive behaviors. There's some feeling that you're trying to avoid, that addiction is helping you bear the weight of that, right? People talk about financial instability as a familial curse. Financial instability is not a generational curse. No one is intended to be poor and groveling forever. But if that is going on in your family, that means y'all are addressing the wrong wound. That's why when you find financial stability, you're still afflicted by it. So financial instability is the wound, is the blood from the wound. It is not the wound. So what is attached to that financial instability in your bloodline that you need to name so that you can defeat it? People with relationship problems, we talk about this all the time, how sometimes people have relationship problems that they think the solution to their relationship issues is to opt out of the game. They will get out here and talk about how I've been single for 10 years. What generational curse? What is that? What is that a symptom of? Because there are millions of people in this world. What are you attaching your relationship problems? What is making you feel? What is the wound that you are unwilling to address to fix that issue? Have these relational ideas been passed down to you? Did you have family tell you, don't trust no man, don't trust no woman, always have a backup plan, all this stuff, creating these ideas that support relational problems? What are you wiping up but not healing? What are your relationship problems a symptom of? As I stated, mine have been Black man, I appreciate you. I think we definitely want to spend a little more time on addressing generational curses. I think it is fairly important. And the main reason why I really do think it's important is because we talk about it all the time, but nobody is labeling it. So how are we actually going to defeat it or change it or any of those things if we're not even labeling it correctly? We're fighting an uphill battle. Like I said, we talk about addiction, financial instability. We talk about relationship problems, even health issues. We talk about how high blood pressure is just prevalent in the black community. But what does that high blood pressure, what is that what is the real wound? I can imagine that come from a generational curse of worry. I know for my family, I can imagine people having heart problems with all that guilt. When the health issues show up, it's guilt that has been passed down. I remember my family saying things like, I ain't have that. Nobody did that for me. So they envious of even family that, like, our adults can be envious of the children in our family because they had parents there for them all the time. The whole time. We got grandparents in our family now. But those people still have an envy to deal with because the children that they raised had something they never had, and they don't feel good about that. Right? So I think, like I was saying, I think it's important for us to be able to have more discussions about this, and bring in some tools. Like later on, I think, let me see what time it is. I don't even know where we at. I wanted to be able to, oh shit, we had our hour anyway. So we might do it next episode. I think last episode we talked about this fear setting, which is similar to goal setting, but it's really just identifying your fear. I think this process of listening to the video of fear setting will help be one of the tools that we can use to help us identify the generational curses that we deal with, right? But it's important, like I said, for us to be able to break them or to change them. Something else that came through very good last night, which is understanding, because I'm one of those people, especially if you like me, if you're one of those people that once you recognize, as a matter of fact, in my Clifton Strength Finders, it said my number one skill was the ability to see what's broken and how to fix it. So now that I recognize that guilt is the issue, I want to fix it. And I immediately put all that pressure on myself. I want to tell all my family we fighting to get. I want to share this. We gonna beat this devil. You heard? We gonna beat this devil, because now we know what it is. And when I point it out, my family gonna be able to look at their own life like you right. So I put all this weight on me. I want to call my brother. I want to make a post. I want to tell everybody. But I'm glad I had the brothers from the men's group, the Strength and Brotherhood, because they reminded me of something that I teach people about all the time. And that's this idea of realistic timelines, right? So in creating realistic timelines, it took generations for it to get like this. It's in our DNA. It's affected us. Like we carry it around and don't even know. It's a part of us now. It's just manifested in so many different ways. It took more than a generation to get there. It's going to take more than a generation to get from there. But the best thing about it is, now that we've been able to identify it, those that come after us will be fully equipped to beat that devil. You dig? And like you said in a series, I think it's a lot around generational curses, and some of those things are the things that we don't want to admit or we don't want to think about. Because even as I process for myself, part of the story that I didn't tell you is like I felt it in my foot, right? Then all of a sudden I felt like I needed to get up and go outside. I like, oh my God, I gotta go outside. So I knew it was something trying to get out of me. There was some clarity. There's something that is in me that no longer serves the direction that we are going in. No longer serves me as I move towards a healed future. So I knew it was something trying to get out of me. So I went outside, I took a deep breath, took a couple of deep breaths, and then I just completely sat in silence. As we talked about that creating that space for you to feel and experience and navigate and come up to these solutions. You know what I mean? That's what it looked like. I just sat in silence for a while. And then ironically, the energy was kind of aligned for me to be able to do it. If you are in astrology, we talked about it a little bit last night. What is this? The Lion Gate, the 888. You get 8 3 times in this 8 month. So the day where I came up to this clarity, this alcoholic moment of clarity, was on one of those dates, 18, on the 17th. So that was my 1-8. Yeah, because we really want to be able to look at the impact that it has on our life. And when I recognize, and when you recognize the impact that this curse has had on your life, it is going to be overwhelming. It is going to be emotionally overwhelming, because you'll be able to play back the timeline of your life and see at individual spaces and times you were making a decision based on a hurt that was passed down to you. and understanding that was passed down to you. And another reason why it's important to this is we got these wounds through pain. It's going to be a little painful to heal these wounds. You do. You got to heal the mind and reset it. And the problem with that idea or that thought process is people want the easy way. They want the healing without the pain. But for the most part, there is no healing without pain. If I broke my leg today and I went to the doctor, they would cast me up. And you know what else they'd give me? Pain meds. You know why? Because the healing is going to be painful. So we have to take some time to dive deep into those spaces and those places that we don't want to visit. And part of my story, I felt it coming up. And I remember when I first started thinking about it, I gave it a name. So when the name popped in my mind, I immediately was like, I don't want to think about that. That's crazy. I don't want to think about that. I was like, that thing has been so tight on my own family and my own life that we've given it a name, because I didn't give it that name. Somebody in my family, in my bloodline, gave it that name. And when it came up, I ain't want to talk about it. I ain't want to think about it. I ain't want to do nothing. And that sign, that pain, when you run up to that pain threshold, that is a sign that you going in the right direction. You got to scab over. You got to bring it to the surface so the air can get to it and it can scab over. So you can begin to have that scar tissue instead of just the scars. You dig? So, and I think being in that space to be able to actually label your generational curses will allow you to heal yourself and begin to reset your mind and only strengthen you as your duty as a healer. That each one teach one applies to every one of us, especially you. You dig? So, we want to, next week, I think we'll start going on the fear setting since we ain't do it today. We had our hour. We went over a little bit, which is cool. We're going to continue to talk about generational curses. I don't know where I'm going to take it next, but I think with fear setting, we'll do fantastic. Terrence, Black Man, I appreciate you in here today. You know what I mean? I appreciate when you always show up, brother. I'll tell you this too. Take some time, brother, and create that space for you to be able to process and figure out what your family's is. And I say this to you because you here, you know, one of the reasons we connected, because we are the chosen ones. We are the ones that's going to figure it out. I said, my friend, it was crazy. I said it to her. I was like, listen, if anybody was going to figure it out in my family, it was going to be me. The black sheep, the problem child, the one who don't like to go with the system, the one who's I'm going to keep banging up against that wall till I figure out what it is. And I know you that same man. You know what I mean? So take that time and process that to figure out what it is for yourself. And I advise that for all of the soul family. Take that time. Go in to do that shadow work. Go into the depths of your mind and your heart and figure out what has been passed down to you. Like I said, worry is one. And then you figure out what is people protecting people that worry from. What was that worry supposed to do so you can utilize it correctly? I recognize some people, I know fear is one that's passed down. Like my family, they ain't scared of nothing. I'm talking about going to jail, shooting at you. No, they ain't scared of nothing. My family ain't scared of nothing. So fear was not it. We feel guilty for a lot of decisions that we make, but fear was not it. But for your family, it can be fear. People that fear that generational curse that's passed down to you as good intentions, solid advice to live your life, but it is fearful thinking. You dig? I know fear is another one. Weird. Worry is huge. As a matter of fact, next week, I'm going to write it down. Hopefully this fear setting will help us identify. But we want to take some time and try to identify that. So we just talked about fear is one. We know guilt is one. We know worry is one. These are the wounds that your family are carrying, right? But again, family, I appreciate your time. We're going to take some time next week to talk about. We're going to start trying to figure out what they are together. So take some time over this week when you're here and think about what it doesn't even have to be yours. We just have to be able to think about the ones that we may have ran across in our travels. And we're gonna make a list so that we can begin to help out each one teach one. As we uncover these truths, we want to be able to point this to our people, our family. So then they can do the work as well, right? So I hope to see you here on Thursday. Thursday again is book club, so we just reading. We continue reading Makes Me Want to Holler by Nathan McCall. But if you can't make it Thursday, I hope that I can have you back here on Tuesday. Well, of course, our show is about all things. Okay, it's not playing. All things healing. Oh, or as it is playing. Man, have I had that ambiance music playing the whole time? That's crazy. I'm sorry, family. I thought I got it out. But anyway, this is the going out music, so it makes sense. So I'm sorry, family. Anyway, I hope to see you here next Tuesday for another episode of Soul Swami Live as we name